Okay, friends, let's get into it. I'm very excited for this chat. Home to Inclusion, a conversation about authenticity and belonging with an Out Freddie Mac leader. Freddie Mac has earned a spot on the Human Rights Campaign Foundation for Best Workplace for LGBTQ plus talent for more than a decade. Many of their LGBTQ plus inclusion efforts have been led in part by its Pride Business Resource Group. And we have Brian Pesner, the group's co-chair and a human resources partner, and he will share how he makes Freddie Mac home to inclusion. Brian, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Hunter.
I'm so happy to have you here. Um, so let's jump right into it. You've been with Freddie Mac for 6 years. I'd love to hear a little bit about your career journey and what you're doing now, and why you love staying at Freddie Mac. If you're 6 years, it sounds like you're going to go on seven. So tell me more.
Yeah, sure. Yes. You already started to touch on it, but I'll expand on it a bit more. As you mentioned, I'm an HR business partner. For those of you who are wondering what exactly does that mean, I know HR, but what is an HR business partner? Essentially, our role is to align talent strategy to a business strategy, and we usually represent different areas of the business, different divisions, business units, whatever it would be called. They're called something different in each organization. So I've been in that capacity through my tenure at Freddie Mac, but supporting various divisions during that point. I started off supporting our information technology organization. I've supported our chief administrative officer, which includes corporate communications, public relations, corporate services, regulatory affairs. And currently, I am supporting both our multifamily business as well as our enterprise risk management organization, which is our second line of defense. So that is what I would call my day job. For anyone who is a leader in an LGBTQ plus employee resource group, will usually refer to their day job and their gay job. Currently I am the co-chair of the Pride BRG, which I started this year in 2024. However, during my tenure here at Freddie Mac, I was, involved in the Pride BRG from day one, and have served in different capacities. One year I was the Pride Month lead. And right before this, I was what we call our enterprise initiatives lead, which is focused on working directly with our DEI organization, diversity, equity, and inclusion, to make sure that Freddie Mac is a welcoming place for the LGBTQ plus employee base. So that's a little bit about my day job and my gay job. And because I get to do two different things. That's definitely something that keeps me here. I'm always busy, never bored.
I love that. I love day job and gay job.
Yeah. No, it's widely utilized out there in the BRG sphere.
Yeah. And just point of clarity too. Some people say BRG and some people say ERG, but would you say they're about the same thing?
Good question. So ERG meaning Employee Resource Group and BRG Business Resource Group. Freddie Mac had sort of changed the terminology to BRG just about a year or 2 years ago, and the idea is we really want to emphasize the focus on the business. While we absolutely are committed to the community that an ERG has, what Freddie Mac has been asking us is how do these groups then contribute directly to the business? And as we're talking, I can give you some examples in terms of how our group is doing that. But that's sort of the language difference there, and that shifted just a few years ago here at Freddie Mac.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to get into that in a moment, but it's always helpful I feel like I need a lexicon, a book that's updated daily with all the different acronyms in
Oh
our
yeah,
world.
yeah, yeah, and especially here at Freddie Mac, we use so many acronyms. It's usually when someone starts, they're like, it's great here, but is there an actual place where I can look up these acronyms? And in fact, we did create an acronym book so that people could go in and see what they are. And at least it helps a little bit for sure.
Yeah, I
I
love
get what you mean.
right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny too, because like in some businesses, the same acronym will mean something different. Like it'll actually stand for something else. I guess there's only so many like three letters you can do.
Right. But you'll be surprised, right? So,
Yeah. 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 So I read a little bit in the intro there, and in the intro we shared that you are out at work, and if you're comfortable, how did you come out to your colleagues, and how do you continue being your authentic self at Freddie Mac?
yeah, no, good question. Um, the good news for me was I was out right in the beginning from the candidate experience, even before I became an employee. So when I applied to Freddie Mac on the application, it gave the option to self-identify as LGBTQ plus. So that in of itself already told me that this is a place where diversity and inclusion matters. And that kind of helped me in my interview process and interviewing with various folks. I was out right there. And at the time, the reason why I was looking for work at Freddie Mac was I was relocating. So I was living in the Philadelphia area, but my husband's job moved and he got a new job in the Washington, D.C. area. So when I was interviewing, I was explaining that I was looking to relocate because of that. So that in of itself, I was kind of out right there in the interview process. And lucky enough, when I was interviewing the vice president of the HR business partners at the time, she's retired. She was actually one of the founding members of the Pride ERG back in the 90s. So it
Wow.
was just an automatic sort of connection. And I remember even one of my other colleagues who is an ally, she walked me over to her desk to show me something, and she had a safe space card which says, you could be your authentic self with me. So the entire process, I was out right then. Now everyone knows that if you are LGBTQ plus, you're always coming out, right? You just don't come out once. But I think absolutely having that candidate experience gave me sort of the confidence that I could be myself through my entire career here at Freddie Mac, and being part of a BRG or a supportive group of people also helps that.
I love that. I love hearing about every touch point you felt a green light with safety.
That's
That's
right.
so, that's so nice. That must have been a relief just to be like, oh, I don't even have to think about this.
That's right. Absolutely. Of course, like I said, there's always, I think as LGBTQ people, we always will have a little bit of a guard up at any point, but like, hey, if I tell this client, like, will they care?
Right.
Um, and I've just kind of chosen not to. And it's worked out for me. And, really I found acceptance and just felt like I could be myself my entire time here at Freddie.
I love that. Yeah, it's just like you just mentioned your husband a minute ago. It's like a nice, easy touch point to be like, oh, my husband and I, and
Right.
then you can kind of gauge and you're like, okay, we're good, we're good.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So, what advice would you have to others who are looking to come out at work? Maybe not everyone has that experience where they get to have every step of the way, even in the hiring process and the interview process. Maybe some folks are in an environment where this wasn't really normalized yet, or maybe they're just figuring it out for the first time now. Is there any advice that you would give to them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and I do want to recognize that everyone's story is unique, and it's an individual one. It's an individual choice to come out. So there are many factors and I don't want to pretend that I can speak on behalf of every individual. So know that only you will know when it's the right time and if it's the right time. That being said, I do think there are some general things that everyone can consider. First it is to do your research on the company that you're at, or if you're looking for another role, what is the culture like? On their website does it list that they have benefits that are geared towards the LGBTQ plus community? Do they talk about diversity and inclusion on their website? What are the policies of the organization? So if you were to be treated unfairly, what is the company's policy on that? Can you feel safe to report it, and will they take it seriously? So just doing that research, and then if the organization you have does have an employee or business resource group, an LGBTQ plus one, it's a great place to find your people, right? And your people meaning both people who identify as LGBTQ plus and straight allies who are, who, and we'll talk about that too, have been just amazing here at Freddie. So if that is something that is available, find those people. That is a safe space for you.
Yeah, it's so important, and I love that the how you were speaking to your people do include allies, and because that's just people we
Absolutely.
feel comfortable with, right? And people that
Mhm.
create that psychological safety that we all want when we go to work.
Absolutely. Yes. And then, of course, those folks who are, part of or play a leadership role in the employee resource group or business resource group, they're actively there saying, like, I not only am I an ally, but I want to learn and I want to be there for you. Right. So it really truly is it's a safe space. And I 100% would recommend finding those folks at your company,
Mm,
if the company has that group.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, given your role as in HR and as the co-chair of the company's Pride BRG, how does Freddie Mac create a welcoming and inclusive environment for LGBT plus employees? And can you speak to any specific benefits and training and career development opportunities?
Absolutely. So, well, one, you mentioned this earlier. You mentioned the Human Rights Campaign. So, most of you are familiar with the Human Rights Campaign. They actually have their own sort of system that evaluates how friendly an organization is to the LGBTQ plus community. It's called the Corporate Equality Index. So, as you mentioned, Freddie Mac actually has received a 100% score since 2010. So it is something that we are constantly looking at. And for those of you who are familiar, they've actually every year the Human Rights Campaign makes it more difficult to hit that 100%, which is a good thing, right? That means you really have to make sure that you have the right policies and culture there to ensure to get that score. So that's one thing. And then there are a slew of great benefits that we have. I have it right here. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing anything. So a few things. One, we do, and while some note that some of these benefits aren't only for LGBTQ employees, it's for everyone, but a lot of LGBTQ employees absolutely uh, are excited about these benefits. So one is we do offer 12 weeks of paid parental leave to support employees or their spouse or domestic partner who give birth to bond with their new child or to care for a recently adopted child. We provide a $30,000 lifetime maximum toward qualified infertility or IVF benefits. And then up to $30,000 reimbursed for adoption for qualified adoption expenses. And we do provide financial assistance for eligible surrogacy related expenses through our surrogacy reimbursement program. And then more specifically for LGBTQ plus employees, we do provide gender affirming care through our Cigna options. We also we've partnered with diversity, equity, inclusion to have a gender transition guide, which is essentially guidelines on for both the employee and the manager on how, as they're making this transition, what are some of the things that need to be thought of, like, hey, the name is changing, right? We need to change the IT system. So it's a great
Mhm.
way to not only have a guide for the employee, but really helps the manager who may not know, what do I do? So those are some of the examples of some of the benefits that we have. In terms of training and development, being part of the business resource group and specifically being on our core team provides a number of of opportunities. So when you're part of a business resource group, like I said my gay job, you truly are building other types of skills, right? So we do a number of programming. So it's collaborating with other BRGs. It could be you get the opportunity to practice your public speaking skills,
Mm,
project managing. Some people are SharePoint leads. So people who aren't um, IT folks end up being our SharePoint lead, and they learn skills through that. We also have a strong partnership with Out and Equal, and we attend their summit every year where you learn about best practices of organizations in the LGBTQ plus community. We also have put in bids for us to be presenters there. So just being part of the BRG in of itself gives lots of opportunities for people to grow and develop outside of their day jobs.
I love that. That is such an extensive and robust and uh I don't know, it gives me hope to hear that there is that much support in a work environment.
Absolutely. Yes. It's great. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves of everything that is available and keep a list. And we do a good job, when we're thinking about essentially our BRG is structured in committees, and every year we kind of build more committees because someone said, I have an idea or there's a need here. So we continue to
Mm.
build opportunities for the folks involved in the BRG every year.
I love that. I love that. And so with, we just had Pride Month, but you're doing things all year long. So I'd be curious, what does the BRG events and groups and all of that look like beyond just the month of Pride?
Yes, yes, and we did have. It's actually crazy to think that we're ending Pride Month, and we did so much there as well. But yes, like I said, so we are organized based off of committees, and we have committee leads and committee members. So I won't go through everything, but as I think about the different committees, I'll give an example for each one. So I mentioned before that before this role, I was the head of the Enterprise Initiatives Committee, which the idea is to have build a direct relationship with DEI. So they're in every one of those committee meetings. So one thing that we're working on this year is working with them and our facilities corporate services organization to ensure that all of our buildings have gender neutral restroom options. So that is an
Mm,
example of something that we're doing. We have our divisions liaison role, which means we are making sure that we're partnering with each of the divisions at Freddie Mac to ensure that in all of the diversity initiatives, the LGBTQ plus voice is heard. And one cool thing that committee had started was what we call our pronouns roadshow. So the idea is that we're educating our employee base on gender identity, gender expression, and why you're seeing pronouns in email signatures, LinkedIn, et cetera, and what the benefits of that are and how that makes the organization more inclusive. So we have a number of folks who've been doing that with their divisions. We also have a non-Pride Month programming committee, which focuses on we do so much during Pride Month, but what else do we do throughout the year? One subgroup of that is our book club. We have a Rainbow Readers book club. So every
mm,
few choose a book. This in Pride Month, we did it. We actually partnered with our Inspiration employee resource group, and we read a book by a Japanese author. It's actually a manga book, so it reads from back to forwards, right to left, and the book kind of talked about the experiences of the LGBTQ plus community in Japan. So that was something that we did. I this year created a new committee called our community chair. So it kind of serves dual purposes. One, just from a social perspective, right? Hey, let's all get together for happy hour, or even, hey, once a month, we're all, whoever's in our headquarters will meet up for lunch. But then also more on the by community side, uh, making sure that they're a safe space to talk about various topics, right? Especially with an election coming up, we want to make sure that people have a safe space that they can talk about issues that are on their mind. Or we have a good number of folks who are involved who are parents of LGBTQ children. So even having one month, we'll have a topic committed to that. So that's just some of the examples of stuff we're doing in the committees that we run here in the Pride BRG.
So awesome. I love the book club. That's so fantastic that you get and that you're, traveling the globe with different writers from different perspectives, right? With the more we are open to hearing things that are outside of our own experience, right? I think the richer our well of empathy is developed, right? Just because I'm part of the queer family doesn't mean I'm inherently already by default like everyone's ally in expertise, right? It's like I want to be, but there's so much for me to learn, right, from other people that I'm an infallible person. I don't know everything, but I love that that y'all are doing that, where it's like, yes, let's focus on this. This is their experience, and you're like, wow, that is not anything like I have experienced, except for this one shared piece that we can identify with. But then there's so much that's so different.
That's right. I mean, and intersectionality is such a big topic. And as I gave that example in the book club where we partnered with our Inspiration Employee Resource Group. That's for that reason, we really try in our programming to think about how can we integrate other perspectives and partner with, hey, do you want to co-sponsor this event with us, right? I would say that diversity, equity, and inclusion really does a good job of encouraging us to do that so that we can talk about exactly what you said.
I love that. I love that. Also, the road show. What was it? What was the name of that one?
The Pronouns Roadshow.
The Pronouns
Yeah,
Roadshow.
yeah.
I just see like
We're on
I
the
want to
road.
just like have a
Gays
cowboy
on the
hat.
road. Yeah,
Like lassoing in different pronouns. Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
Different kind
If one thing we're creative, right? No matter.
totally. It's a different kind of drag race, right?
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
I love that. So, what other support systems or mechanisms are in place? Like counseling, maybe. Are there any, and what roles do allies play in promoting the LGBTQ plus inclusion at Freddie Mac?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of counseling, Freddie Mac does have we have our employee assistance program in which we do offer confidential counseling if employees are, I mean, it could be for any issue, right? Not specifically LGBTQ plus focus, but I know that it's used in that case as well. We also have like wellness coaches, for example, that people can use to talk about whatever it is, life, work, if something is troubling them at work, life, nutrition, etc. So that is an option. And then, kind of going to your second part of your question in terms of what role allies play, and that comes back to, the great resources we have just within the employee resource group. Allies play such an important role. And I would say, within our leadership team, we have a good number of our folks on the leadership team who are allies. And again, they're very much, they if you ask their personal stories, they're like, hey, I am a parent of an LGBTQ child. I have close friends who are LGBTQ plus, so they're truly there as resources as well. Actually, the individual who was our Pride Month lead, she did an amazing job, an ally, and just did an awesome job. And we do a good job of bringing allies in, and they've been a support to all of us throughout our history as a VRG since the late 90s.
Oh man, that's so fantastic. I love that. I'd love to hear a bit about how does Freddie Mac measure progress and hold itself accountable for LGBTQ plus inclusion?
Yeah, good question. Well, one, going back to just the fact that we are participating in filling out the survey for the Corporate Equality Index from the Human Rights Campaign, you have to hit very specific milestones and measures. And as I mentioned, it is actually it's become more difficult to get that 100% every year. So you do have to up your game every year. In addition, specifically the Pride BRG. So as the co-chair, for example, every year we have to submit a what we call a business impact plan. That business impact plan aligns directly to the pillars of our diversity, equity, and inclusion organization. So those pillars are, workforce, community, and supplier diversity. So then each BRG has to create its own sort of strategy that aligns to that. And I need to every quarter check in and say where are we against that plan. So that's really, so both from the corporate perspective, the corporate equality index, but through the BRG, we're also accountable for doing this business impact plan, where I have to tell them what those things are and where are we tracking. Similar to, in a day job where, division heads are accountable for, corporate scorecards. So similarly, we have the same through the business impact plan.
Oh, I love that. I mean, we love accountability, don't we?
We do.
Are there any other innovative practices or initiatives that Freddie Mac has implemented to support LGBTQ plus individuals?
Yeah. And before, when you asked about employee resource group versus business resource group. So, our role in addition to community is giving back to the business. So, Freddie Mac is in the housing and mortgage industry. So, a few examples of things that we've done. So, we have commissioned a first of its kind study, which provides insight into the experiences of LGBTQ plus renters and home buyers. So what is that process like for the LGBTQ plus community? The Pride BRG and our single family business did a LGBTQ plus housing summit where we had various speakers of various organizations talk about, hey, what are some of the barriers to financing? What is some of the unique discrimination that's found with LGBTQ plus home buyers, and how can we better advocate access for LGBTQ plus friendly housing? So that again goes back to the business resource group and how we can kind of support our business as well.
We could have a 30-minute conversation on that, but could you just touch on what some of those differences are? I know we only have a few minutes left, but that's a very interesting topic.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, there absolutely are some. Well, even if you look at, for example, many folks may have been asked to leave their homes because of their LGBTQ plus identity. So that adds a whole different other start, right? So even sort of access to credit, the money, generational wealth may not be passed down as easily, right? We do talk, we did have a topic about for people who are trans, going back into credit, you have there's a dead name and your current name. What are some of the implications of even looking at credit if someone had changed their name, over the past year? So those are some of the topics, that are covered. Again, we could probably have a long conversation on that, but those are some of the things that we touch on to help educate organizations that are, working with the population.
Yeah, that's such important work. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
So as we're wrapping up here, what advice do you have for people listening who are interested in joining Freddie Mac?
Sure. So, one, Freddie Mac, it is a mission-based organization, right? So our slogan is "We make home possible." So I would say if you are going to apply to Freddie Mac, understand that mission, and if that's something that excites you, absolutely, absolutely apply. Also, the organization was created as an act of Congress to create equitable housing. So. If you're into a mission-based organization, this is a good fit. Be able to articulate that. And then if you do join the organization, please join the Pride BRG. We're always looking for people to help out with a lot of the programming that we have. As I mentioned before, a lot of our committees were, were built over the last few years just because people had an idea and they were passionate about something. So if you're going to join us and you're LGBTQ plus or an ally, we'd love to have more help to help move our organization along. So that's what
I
I would say.
Yeah. Brian, how can folks best stay in touch with you if they want to reach out? Is that something you're open to?
Absolutely. So, one, and I don't know if you provide say email addresses, but LinkedIn is definitely an easy place to find me. I'm not difficult to, although there are a few Brian Pesners. You'll see my face, and you'll see Freddie Mac, an HR business partner. So in that case, I won't be difficult to find. So absolutely feel free to add me on LinkedIn, send me a message, and I'm more than happy to connect with any of you.
Awesome. Awesome. Brian, this was absolutely fantastic, very informative, and also inspiring, I have to say. So thank you so much for making the time today. I hope we get to do this again.
Yes, and thank you, Hunter. Appreciate your time as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. Have
All
a great
right.
rest of your
You
yeah.
too. And